boot camp, vulnerability, and hog hunting. How do these three things connect? Wayne Herring has the answer.
Welcome to Fox Talks Business Podcast with your host, Tanya Fox. Tanya has been an entrepreneur for over 20 years, owning retail, service, and franchise. She holds no punches and is never afraid to talk about the nitty-gritty. Together, you'll explore the good, the bad, and the motivational of business life, turning obstacles into opportunities and failures into successes. So grab your favorite drink and let's have some fun. Here's your host, speaker, crafter, and collaborator, Tanya Fox.
So thank you so much for joining me on the show today, Wayne. I'm so excited to have you.
And I'm really excited to be here and have this conversation with you.
So give us a little bit of background on sort of how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So where I'm at today, and one of the things we were talking about in the pre-show was I'm working on Business Builder Camp. And Business Builder Camp is a mastermind group and a group coaching program for male entrepreneurs. And how I've gotten to this is, I mean, I think lots of things in life have lined up to get me here, but a couple of things that stand out are, you know, in this group, we work not only on business, but we also work on life, being a good dad, being a good husband, and living a fulfilling life, a life of happiness and feeling like we're hitting our potential. And so I've got 4 children between the ages of 9 and almost 17. My wife and I have been married for almost 18 years. So that's a piece of how I've gotten here, the journey through marriage and fatherhood. And then also how I got to Business Builder Camp was a journey through a career in civil engineering, and then time as an organic farmer, and spending time in my father's business that he started, helping him grow that, and then getting to the point where we sold that, and learning about coaching, consulting, and the value of having other people speak into my life. So those are some of the pieces of how I got here, for sure.
And I love that, you know, I think that we need more of what you're doing for men, because we've heard so often, and I can say this because I'm a woman, but we have heard so often about all of these groups starting for women to get together and have all of these mentorships and these retreats and all of that other stuff. And you know, being on the other side of it and the other gender of it, I feel that there really hasn't been a lot out there for men to have that same sort of experience. And so I think it's really great. So tell us a little bit more about the program and what people would find out of it.
So I guess I came into this a little bit accidentally. I was participating I participate in various masterminds and groups. I know you have a mastermind, and sometimes they've been co-ed, but I was in one for a while that was men only. And in that group, it's iron sharpens iron with a guy named Aaron Walker. And when I was in that group, I realized that there was power in being around other people who were guys and were having the same experiences that I was having, or at least similar enough that we could have common ground and talk about things. And so as I participated in that group at the time, I had a bunch of one-on-one clients that I was serving, and I was like, man, it would be great to get them together. And so the first time we did a Business Builder Camp, we called it a camp, was we rented a house near Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, here in the States, at a famous battlefield, right?
Yep.
And so we met in this house. We found it on VRBO, and it was a house that had an indoor pool and like a fire ring outside. And I just did it for my one-on-one male clients that I had at the time. And I prepared all this information, you know, like handouts, and I think I had a 3-ring binder of things that we were going to go over. And really what happened was when we got to that place, immediately people started to bond. Immediately these guys started talking about where they came from and their hobbies and their businesses. And that quickly got to, how business and family intersect. And when you like live with people like that for a couple days, you can't help but go deep. And if you're the person that is willing to be vulnerable, et cetera. So we did that. And so now the program and what we do is that it's live meetups, which of course, as we record this, we're in a time of COVID, and it's not so easy to travel. But so live meetups are part of it. And just like everybody else, just like you and I are doing right now, we use Zoom in the absence of live meetups to gather and see all the faces around the screen. So it's partially the program is being together with a group of business owning men who also know what it's like to be trying to build your business, but then have obligations at home. Not only obligations, but things you want to do, things you want to balance with children and your spouse, and how to communicate about making sure both of your needs are met, and having a calendar together. So it's getting together and it's talking through all those things, and studying books, and we have a rhythm and a process we follow of setting plans for the following 90 days so that we're all working together on a set of projects, et cetera. So those are some of the pieces of the work we do together.
And I think it's true, like when you had talked about vulnerability, I think that's such a big thing for entrepreneurs, because we get stuck in this almost mindset where we feel like we should know the answers. And, especially if you're, in coaching, or you're, training somebody. And so that piece of sort of having those feelings, but actually asking for help can be really hard for people. And you have a really great story, a hog hunting story about vulnerability. Can you tell us that story, and then how that experience was for you?
Sure. So vulnerability. I think we'll probably end up coming back to that a few
Absolutely.
times, like asking for help. And I agree with you. It's hard. I'm not quite sure why in the abstract, but I know it is. Yeah. So the hog hunting story is, my cousin and I were watching a TV show, and we saw that in the state of South Carolina, there were these wild hogs that were coming out of the swamps and like ravaging people's backyards and digging up their grass and ornamental plants and everything. And he and I had not, we've had some adventures in the past, but we hadn't had one for a while. So I said, you know what we need to do? We need to go down there and we need to help these people out. We need to go on a hog hunting trip to try to alleviate their pain. And so we set off very optimistically in the truck, and it was just going to be easy. Like, clearly, based on what we saw on TV, it was going to be easy. We were going to go there and hunt these hogs. Well, we went to a wildlife management area that was 20,000 acres, and it was 20,000 acres of swamp. Like, we're talking, there was even alligators there. And, we had never been there before. We had never hunted wild hogs. And so we got out of the truck and we went for about a 2-mile walk and realized this was going to be a whole lot harder than what we thought it was. And we had no idea where to go on 20,000 acres of water and palmettos and creeks. And there's a lot of times in life where we get in a situation like that, where we've never been here before. So why would we know? You said something about we feel like we should know, but why would we know?
Right? Yeah.
We haven't been here. So what happened was there were people driving around, and they clearly were having success. And I know it's weird to say, but that means that I saw that they had some hogs that they had killed or harvested. And so in order to figure this out, I knew we were going to have to find out what to do. So everybody we would drive past, I made sure to roll the window down and ask them some questions and try to understand what to do. But people in that situation, hunters, are not going to do it for us. They're not going to divulge their secret spot, but they're going to give us clues. So everybody was willing to help, but they were like willing to help. They didn't know exactly what I needed, and they sure weren't going to send them to their spot. So it was like putting a puzzle together.
Right.
It was ask questions, find out about this tree and this habitat type, and keep solving for it, and then keep doing the work. So my cousin and I continued to do 3 to 5 mile slogs through the swamp, trying to implement what we were hearing from people. And I think that a lot of business and life, for that fact, is similar to that scenario, where we eventually did figure I don't know if we figured it out, but we had some success doing that. And so often in business and life, like, people don't know exactly what I need, but they're willing to help. But I have to keep asking questions. I keep having to find experts or consultants or coaches or other business owners who have done it before, and ask them, and then piece together my own puzzle to paint my own, picture, so that I can get to the end result that I want.
And I think that that's a key thing that you said there, is you're almost, building a puzzle with it, because quite often people, feel like they ask a question, they get an answer, and they're like, well, that's not the answer I wanted. They want just do this, this, and this, and then you will have success.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And it doesn't necessarily work that way. So I think that that's a really good reminder that sometimes you get the answer, but you have to sort of convert it into what works in your situation.
Right. You have to try it out. Right. And you have to implement a few pieces of it and do the work.
Yeah. And so you also have a great story about Warren Lewis that you had talked about before, and a yellow legal pad. So I'm interested in hearing more about this.
Sure. So, part of Business Builder Camp, and part of any program that is designed to get us around other business owners and other smart people, it is about having mentors, having those people like the folks that I was rolling up to in our truck and asking the questions. So Warren Lewis is a guy in my life who is an important mentor. There's a bunch of other ones, but he is one who I would say has revealed a lot of kind of secrets about life. And so Warren Lewis was the first coach or consultant and trainer that I ever worked with back when I was in the corporate world. And Warren, when I left, we sold. So I helped my dad grow his business, and we sold it. We exited. It was sold to a publicly traded firm. And I was sitting in my kitchen at the kitchen counter trying to figure out what's next. What am I going to do next? What's the next chapter? And I had out a yellow legal pad, because that's what you would do to try to figure out how are you going to support your family and what's the next chapter when you move on. And so Warren Lewis is the guy that came up right away, because I thought, I want to be, as I was sketching out, I want to be like Warren Lewis. I want to do what he does and create what he's created. And he helped many business owners to move ahead, both in life and in their business. So yeah, Warren's one of those guys for me that has helped show me the way and show me secrets.
So when you were sitting there, because I think that's quite often, right? Like, especially if we're transitioning from, one business to another, is that we get so almost hyper focused on getting rid of that business or transitioning to something else, that we forget that other piece of, well, now what? So we end up in that state, like you said, where you're sitting, at the table and you're like, now what do I do with my life? So how did you come up with that, with that decision of the next step that you were going to take?
At the time that I was sitting there with the yellow legal pad, so the business that my dad started, that I had worked in for 9 years, we were in the final days of closing the transaction and moving on. And when I was trying to decide what to do, Warren Lewis, I just always loved what he did with me, and I loved what he did with his team, with my team. And I thought, of anything I would want to do in the world, I'd like to be like him. And I didn't even know what like him meant. He was a coach consultant, is how he would have, coach consultant trainer is what he would have put on his business card. But I had no idea, how do you build a business like that? How does it even work? How do you find clients? How do you serve people? So there were, the way I made the decision is, I always admired what he did. I knew I wanted to be like him. But the next piece was, I wasn't sure that I could do it. And so I went to him and I asked him two questions. First of all, I said, do you think can I do what you do? Can I help companies? Can I help business owners? And like, do I have what it takes? Am I going to be able to feed my 4 kids, pay my mortgage, keep going? And I knew that he was a person who would be honest with me. He had already done this work. He had already built a business like this, and he'd been around me for 9 years in a coaching relationship, not consciously evaluating whether I could do what he did or not, simply working with me as a leader in our company. But he was, a step that sometimes we could take is it does help to have somebody in our life like him who is able to be honest with us and tell us the truth about ourselves. And so he said, yes, absolutely, you can do this. And my second question to him was, will you help me? And so, I think in that spot with the blank yellow legal pad, I wasn't looking for all the answers. I wasn't looking for somebody else to do the work, but I needed to have confidence that I would know where to go, that I would know who to take rough situations to that would help me solve through them. So I didn't want a complete safety net when I was jumping into the next thing, but I wanted a bit of a place to look down and know I'd be able to fall back on a person who'd be able to help me for sure.
And I think that that's the key thing is because quite often when people are starting businesses, of course, they ask, family and friends. And then of course, hopefully you have that support network, but then again too, they're always like, yeah, absolutely, it would be fantastic. Right. But we don't have that person, like you said, that is a mentor that's been there, that is really going to be truthful with you. And I think that's an important person to find, is that person who's going to be truthful and say, yeah or no, or here's where you kind of need to pivot. And I think, like you had said, that we go back to it, it comes back to that, being able to be vulnerable and ask that question of somebody, of saying, do you think I can do this? Or how can I get there? And I think the most important piece that you said is about asking for help, because I think quite often we don't do that. We don't say, hey, can you help me? And so in your experience, when you have asked that question, because I think a lot of people go, well, that's great, but, I'm so scared someone's going to say no, or, who am I to ask? So do you have any tips of people of how they can overcome that fear that usually seems to bubble up for people?
I think that first you really need to know what you want. First, you need to have clarity about what it is you're asking for help on, right? So you need to be able to, I knew when I went to him specifically that I wanted to be like him, and that's what was on the yellow legal pad, right? When I went to the story I was talking about, was going to South Carolina to try to find wild hogs who hide in the swamp and bury down in the mud on 20,000 acres, I knew very clearly that what I wanted to do was come face to face with one of these critters and try to figure out where they were. So it helped inform, I think it's hard to ask people for help if it's easier to ask people for help when I really know what I'm asking them for.
Right.
And where I'm headed and why I'm doing that. I think that gives us confidence. And also, along those lines, I don't know if you've maybe aware of the book, War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
Yes.
It's been a favorite recently. I've been listening to it on Audible and reading it, and it talks about when there's something in us that we want to create. So your work, your podcast, everybody listening is probably an entrepreneur or wants to be an entrepreneur. They're already started down that path. And even when you already have an established business, there comes the next idea or the next thing, or there comes this feeling that I'm not quite settled and I don't know why, but I feel discontent and I want to create something else. And so Pressfield in War of Art talks about the need to push through resistance and asking other people for help maybe, and not doing it could be a form of resistance. So I think the first just getting really clear on what I want so that I can like, almost like grab it and know where I'm heading certainly makes it easier to ask people for help and helps guide and pinch down to the actual questions that we want to ask. And I think other than that, Tanya, boy, I've always, I don't know why. I think I get it from parents or something, but asking somebody for help and laying out my vision has never been particularly painful. Like it didn't hurt when I asked people for help on the hog hunting trip. If they sort of blew me off and said, "Oh man, I don't really know where to look. Sorry, I can't help you out." Like, okay, like we're gonna go talk to the next person. So maybe it's practice sometimes,
Yeah.
asking maybe even safer things that would help break through to ask bigger questions.
And I think that really getting specific about the question that you're looking for, because quite often we, give too much of an open-ended question. And so we get an open-ended answer, and I think being more specific just allows that person that you're asking for help to maybe offer you advice that is really going to be relatable to what you truly need to help you.
Well, you remind me of, I remember asking, I was in a study group with a coach named Taki Moore from Australia for a while. And it was a group coaching program, and we were in Los Angeles. And I wanted to ask him a question, and I went up and I sort of was like kind of beating around the bush and like getting there and qualifying. And he looked me in the eye and he goes, "What's your question?" And yeah, busy people will help us, but they don't want to hear a story. They actually really want to know what's the question.
Yeah. And I think that's true. We try to fill the space almost, like that we have to have the conversation beforehand. Because I know I'm guilty of that as well. You had talked a little bit before too about trying to figure out your work-life balance. And I think that's something that, I know I have, suffered through in my career, and have always, worked at juggling what is going to work for everybody, because I feel that, that work-life balance is an ever-changing thing. Tell us a little bit about how you manage that, with 4 kids and all of your job that you're doing.
Yeah. So somebody told me one time that balance is a verb and not a noun, right? And I also heard the example one time that balance, if we watch a ballerina, I wish I could say who told me this the first time, but if we watch a ballerina from the upper body, they could be very steady on point. But if we were to watch their toe, we notice that it's like going like crazy and making micro adjustments, right? So even when we're balanced, we're kind of in motion. We're going this way and we're going that way. So for me, accepting that balance is a verb has been helpful. We work on balance in Business Builder Camp, but the way that we work on it is through a process and through a system. So it's a very like common life coaching tool. The wheel of life is a common tool. I believe Coactive Coaching is probably the company that I should give credit for, and you could find the tool, and it simply takes my life and divides it into 8 dimensions and asks me to rate my satisfaction with each dimension right in the moment. So balance to me is this process where and we do this where every 120 days we take a personal inventory. I take a look at, where am I and how satisfied am I with respect to finances, with respect to my career, with respect to my loved ones, significant other. I do a fair bit of, even taking that further, taking a big piece of paper and drawing each of my children's names and what's going on with them and what do they need and where are they headed and how would I like to pour into them, and then business sections of my business, different clients. So I like to try to look at all that on a big piece of paper. So I think balance is about rhythm of taking inventory, taking stock, and getting really clear with what I want and jotting down what do I want. And is there, in this period of time, I've been out of balance. I guess I've been purposely out of balance at times. Last year I ran an ultra marathon. It was something somebody asked me if I wanted to do it. It was 31 miles, took a lot of training. I think there were probably Saturdays where I wasn't in balance in terms of how many hours I spent with people, but it's something I wanted to do. And when it was over, now it's over. And I don't plan on becoming a career. I sure couldn't go do it right now. So that's how balance works in my life and how it works for some of the clients that I work with.
And do you find that, because I find a lot of people try to, there's all of these templates out there of this is how much time you should spend at work and this is how much time you spend with your family. And so people get stuck in trying to cram their circumstance into a template. Do you find that people need to, sort of take that advice, and like with the clients that you worked on, it's fine to look at that, but you also have to realize that, like you said, there's going to be those micro movements that you need to make it work for your particular situation?
I can imagine that there's tools like that. I've never looked at one, I suppose, to try to figure out what I should be doing and what percentage of time I should be on. I think that's a deeply personal decisions. It helps to have other people around us that know us, who can speak truth into our life and catch us if it feels to them like we're being way out of balance, I think. But no, yeah, I don't think there's a absolute right mix for people. It's more like there's a mixing board of what, like a sound mixing board. And sometimes I slide one up and sometimes I slide one down in different areas. And it's just, am I living a life of intention? Am I living a life, are my actions bearing out what I say or what I think I want and how I want to invest my time? The thing I'll share about that is my wife and I, it hasn't always been this way, and it's been 18 years of working through these things. But we spent a lot of time. I have a separate building on the farm for coaching clients one-on-one, and then meeting with small groups. And so she and I have this separate space that we can. I don't get away from the kids. Doesn't sound so good, but I really get away from distraction, move away from the children. And we intentionally have meetings almost every Monday at 10 o'clock where we talk about how we're allocating our time and finances and money, because, money is an indication of energy and where we're going to put things. So we spend a lot of time reevaluating that, and then forming a annual calendar every year for what kind of, does Kathy want to go on some trips to Maine with her family? And when would that be? And should I come on everyone, or is it nice for her to be with her twin without me? And then if I'm participating in a business, last year I participated in a group of 60 other coaches, and we met 3 times live, and that gets laid out in the calendar. And of course, money goes into that too, from the family coffers, from the business coffers. But when you're, a small company, those are closely aligned.
Tied. So yeah, absolutely.
those are some of the things that have worked for me.
And I think that that's key, because I do the same thing. Like my husband and I will sit down and, on Sundays, we always have coffee together. And then it's sort of like, okay, hey, like, what are your plans? What do you need from me? How can I help you? And sometimes it's just listening or, being able to vent. Of course we do it during the week, but it's that one time that is a non-negotiable. So we don't ever cancel it. We don't ever reschedule it. Like, it's just, if you're not feeling it, it doesn't matter. You get your butt down to the living room and that's our time. And I think it's important, because I remember, trying to juggle so much of trying to be there for my business, be there for my husband, be there for my son. And I felt like I had to be there all the time. And then I realized, because I, sort of, again, that vulnerability piece is, I swallowed my pride and I said to him, am I not spending enough time with you? And was really shocked, because he said, actually, you're spending too much time with me. And I would really like you to just kind of go away a little bit. And then I realized, oh my gosh, like here I was so worried and trying to cram so much stuff together, when he's doing exactly what I raised him to be, is to be independent and to be able to amuse himself and, to be able to build those skills. And he did. And so I needed to be okay with, releasing that. But I realized when I asked that question of, do you feel like you're getting enough of me? Am I giving, enough? I was really surprised by the answer, because I was basing all of my plans off of my assumptions of what people needed of me.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good
So
to
I
get
think
clear
it's
with
like
others.
you said, yeah, asking that, and being really specific about the questions, because often we don't ask those of our family members.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. And one thing you said earlier was about like using a tool or what people say you should be doing. And yeah, I just don't put a whole lot of stock in what I should be doing. Asking people close to me for feedback and doing an inventory exercise has been much more fulfilling.
Yeah. And I love that exercise. So you have a mastermind group that you're kicking off in the beginning of September. Tell us a little bit about that, because I think there's probably a lot of people listening that are like, they really love the ideas that you've said, but they just need more help implementing them. So tell us a little bit more about the group.
Yeah, so starting September, we'll have the official mastermind kickoff, where there's a group of 6 to 8 male business owners who are working through, partially through this process that we're talking about, of taking stock, taking inventory in both my business and different areas of life. So in September, we start our 120-day planning cycle. And so in September is the time where we go ahead and take inventory and make plans and set projects for the next period of time. And so everybody will gather up virtually and get started on. We actually have a 120-day plan sheet, like a full size architectural drawing, like if you're going to build a house. So kind of old school paper that, and I'd like to have people in my building where we're doing that, where we're laying out the plan and
Right.
writing on it. But right now, what we're going to do is send one to everybody's home so that they can write on that plan what they're going to do in the next 90 days. And then what we do is we meet twice a month for an hour and a half so that everybody has time to both ask questions, like, just like what we're talking about, is if I get stuck in my business and in life, I want to ask questions. I want to have people to process through and get the help that I need. But also the twice a month meetings keeps us on track and make sure that we are setting micro commitments and then doing the work from meeting to meeting. And I'm hoping that by the time January rolls around, we'll be able to get back to our live meetings where we have people doing their plans together, but maybe not. And that'll be okay too.
Yeah. And I agree. I think I love exercises that are physical, pen on paper, because I think that to me, that's where I feel the most creative in the thought process of, actually writing and taking that time, as opposed to just sort of typing stuff out. So I just love that. Now, where is the best place for people to go to find out more information and sign up for the mastermind?
So we've created a page at businessbuildercamp.com/Fox Talks Business, just for your listeners and viewers.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for allowing us to do that. So if people go to businessbuildercamp.com/Fox Talks Business, what they're going to find there is a free tool that they can take stock and take inventory. We've created a bit of a checklist and a what do I want next document so that people can go through and answer those questions for themselves. And then they can sign up there to be a part of what we call free camp. So it's basically joining our email list. But when they join the list, they're going to get 5 days of emails with the tools that we use to get in that 120-day rhythm to stay on track. So those things will all be there for them as well.
Great. And we'll make sure that we link to that on our blog page as well as our post, so everybody can find that as well. So just before we go, if you could give one tip to entrepreneurs, and I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but what would be one thing that you could say that somebody could take as an action item right now and do for their business today?
The biggest thing is in today's world, don't be stuck. like if you feel stuck in any area of business or life, don't let it go on. Get it down on paper in your journal in the morning. And as soon as you write that down, the next thing is write down the names of 5 people or resources where you might be able to get the answer to that question. Because everything we run into as humans in today's world, there's somebody out there who's going to be able to help them. I was walking this morning and I just was really having that thought that nobody should be stuck in today's world. And and one of the things, by the way, on that Fox Talks business page is I put a link to my calendar. And if I can help anybody through something for 20 minutes, it's not going to be a pitch a business builder camp. Go ahead and sign up and grab a time slot. And if I have an answer, I'll certainly help. Don't get stuck.
I love that. That's great advice. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your stories and your wisdom with us. I know a lot of people will get a lot out of this episode, so I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Wayne is doing some incredible things with his groups and, of course, his Business Builder Bootcamp. He has tons of free resources on his site, but if you want to dig a little bit deeper and really get a running head start or a continuing run in your business, I highly suggest that you head over to our blog post at foxtalksbusiness.ca and look for this episode, and you will get all the links to connect with Wayne further, to learn more about the Business Builder Bootcamp, and as well the special page that he has created just for you, Foxy listener. As always, I so love all of the messages and emails that I have been getting from you guys. Please keep them coming. Let me know what things you're struggling with in your business. Let me know what your successes are. Is there a guest you've always wanted to hear from or a topic you've always wanted us to cover? I want to know about it. I also have a very exciting thing that we have been working on. It is almost ready to launch, but I need some people to check it out. So if you are somebody who listens to our show on a regular basis, I encourage you to send an email to my assistant Lily at foxtalksbookings@gmail.com. The link will also be at the blog post for this episode. And just say, I want to be added to the list. And we are going to send you all of the information about the special promotional materials that we have that are going to be coming out. And you get to try them out. So you get to be on the ground level. There's absolutely no cost for this. All we want is your feedback. It's a little something fun that we're doing to give back, and I'm really excited about it. So if you're interested, like I said, just send Lily an email and tell her you wanted to be added to the list. As always, you can find us every Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. On Facebook and Instagram, we do a live where I talk about collaboration in business and give you ideas, answer any of your questions, and just chat about what is going on in your world of collaboration. So no matter what you're doing, whether you are trying to hunt hogs for the very first time, whether you're asking for help, or whether you're just trying to find the program that is going to take your business to the next level, remember to have fun. Because if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?